my mind just immediately went to, okay, I don't know, it got lost in a house fire. I was like, I'll come back to you. I think they're in the loft. Was pretty much told, like, by all of my teachers, there's no one who's going to take you on, not even the easiest of jobs like Tesco stacking shelves. Mental health was at an all-time low. Then to have certain betrayals from people that I once trusted was kind of like the cherry on top. I was really driven by other people's doubts of me. Rather try and fail than not try and regret.
You're about to watch an amazing guest on the AMSOS podcast. Please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button.
Hello, mate. Stephen. Nice to see you, man.
How are you?
How you doing? I'm good.
Yeah, good.
Long time no see.
It's been a minute. Welcome to the AMSOS podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We jump straight in because time is valuable, you know?
Absolutely.
So as you can see, there's 2 rows of topics in front of us on the table, and I guess let's make your choice.
Sure.
Acquisition or ambition?
Ambition.
Money or mistakes?
Mistakes.
Strategy or sacrifice?
Sacrifice.
Opinions or operations?
Operations.
Survival or service?
Service.
Okay.
Go on that.
Most agency owners are running 6 to 7 tools just to keep the business moving. CRM, prospecting, project management, time tracking, annual leave, SOPs, and then Google Sheets just to stitch together all the data. AMSOS puts all of that into one platform for a hell of a lot less. Go to amsos.agency/demo. Thank you very much, and back to the podcast. Well, while I get all of this set up, why don't you give us some context? Who is sat in front of me? Who's David?
What a question. I'm a bit of an underdog, really. I think, like, throughout my entire life, but you know, like I was saying to you, I was born in Croydon, Midlands, between Nottingham and Derby, and really, like, in the early days, just like really terrible behaviour in terms of what I was doing at school, and I was being mischievous, and I'd be like very silly and fidgety, and I was left-handed. So at that time, believe it or not, I'm only 30 years old, but when you were left-handed when you were younger, they tried to force you to write with your right hand. And so I couldn't write, I couldn't read properly because I didn't get my glasses until I was 8. And so I really struggled with school early days. And then when I started to kind of go into primary school and secondary school and all of that, I found it really difficult to get interest in any particular subjects. Like when they teach you about, you know, I don't know, politics or history or maths and English, and so, you know, I would just switch off like that. And I think for the longest time, there wasn't really much that interested me at school. Like I always thought it was just a dull day. So when I was getting towards like year 10 and 11 in secondary, because I was getting much older and much more sassier, I kind of took the attitude that I just wouldn't go. And I think I did obviously go sometimes, but my attendance was around about 50% at the end of the year on my last 2 years of year 10 and 11. So I didn't do very well, didn't come out with any grades or anything, and was pretty much told, like, by all of my teachers, and it's quite a common story, I think, but they were saying, you know, you're going to really struggle to get into college, essentially. Like, what, you know, there is no one who's going to take you on, like, not even, you know, the easiest of jobs like Tesco stacking shelves. Not that that's a bad job, but they were basically pointing out the fact that I had no grades, like, on my system, and I'm just not going to do well. So I really need to think about, like, what my options are. And from there, really, I ended up applying at Derby College because I was really interested in film. Like, I was inspired by George Lucas and his creativity in Star Wars. I was a big nerd, and ended up actually getting into Derby College, not for my grades, but because of my attitude. And when I interviewed there, I was just myself, and I was like, look, I have no grades, but who else is going to give me a chance? And they gave me a chance, and I was a distinction star student because I was so interested in film, in the creative process. And once I finished that, I had this idea that, you know, I'm going to be a filmmaker, and I'm going to go out and make a film and be famous. And, you know, the reality in early adulthood is that it's not as easy as that, even though some schools and places and parents make it sound like, you know, you can just do whatever you want. And inevitably, it fell upon me that I had to get a job and I had to earn money. You know, I had to start paying my way with my parents. And I never wanted to go into retail or any of that, just because I'm not fit for that. I've got ADHD, so I'm very like not on time on things. I think I was late to this podcast, and my mind just wanders all of the time. So I got recommended by a friend, like, check out an apprenticeship that they're running in Derby for social media. It was the first of its kind. No one's heard of it, and it was, at the time, it was like, social media as a job, like, that's a joke. Like, get a proper job. And so I went to this apprenticeship provider. There was one caveat, and you had to have 3 A equivalents in your GCSEs to actually get in to qualify. But I really wanted to do it because social media at the time was being spearheaded by Stephen Bartlett and Dominic, and it was this new thing where it could be a job. There was a lot of video involved, and that was my forte. So I lied. I created a CV with my parents, and I sat down and I put, English. I varied it, so it was like English and maths, like A and B, and then history A, and then sciences A, and then I put a number of other grades. And immediately they interviewed me because I qualified. Sat down with them, spoke with them, and they were like, "You're absolutely brilliant. We'll get back to you." Got a phone call the next day. I got the apprenticeship. I was onboarded onto the social media apprenticeship program. I was connected with an employer local to me, which was a print company. So I'd started off in social media marketing. And from there, I was doing a lot of studies. So I was doing a bit of work and a bit of study. So I was learning and earning and all these sorts of things. Bear in mind, the wage was like £400 a month. So for me, it was a lot of money. I was like, this is insane. But it was just, it was just fun. And I was so passionate about it. 6 months in, they asked for proof of my qualifications. And I thought, it's been going so well. I'm caught. I'm going to be done for. And so my mind just immediately went to, okay, I don't know, it got lost in a house fire. And I ran with that. I was like, I'll come back to you. I think they're in the loft. And I come back and I was like, we moved house, and then we had a house fire and it's gone. And it was like, okay, you can request them then. And I was like, I can't afford to request them. And then they just kind of left it at that. And no one ever checked it. Like, no one ever checked it. But the funny thing is, I completed that apprenticeship best in class. Same with my college, because I was passionate about it, because I was doing social media and video. I ended up getting the highest grade. I was the standout student of the entire class when some people failed. And that really just like skyrocketed my career. I went from social media, I won't bore you with all the felt, but I went from social media marketing to being a marketing executive at an agency, then a marketing manager, really young. Russell at Source Bioscience took a chance on me, thank God. And that worked out really well. And then I moved on. But throughout my entire career and life, really, I've always wanted to try different flavors of each thing and understand where I fit in the world. So that's what I did. Like, I was jumping from job year after year pretty much until I actually made the move to Manchester, which was a massive step for me. And at that point, I knew who I wanted to be. And I was like, I work really well with new business, meeting people, working with teams on awesome projects and creatives. And like, I had an early interest in being a leader. I was like, I love inspiring other people to bring out the best in themselves. So I went down that path, and after several years at an agency, Candid Sky in Manchester, as you know, I eventually went up to managing director and then CEO. And that was a very painful, fulfilling, exciting, amazing part of my career. It had many ups and downs, which I'm sure we can go into. But I think eventually there were certain things that were going on internally that I didn't agree with. And I made the decision to resign from that position with immediate effect. And it was a very hard decision for me, because it was 7 years of my life that I was building something else for someone else. And there's a bit of a grieving period with that, and it was a very hard thing to do. And so I stepped away, and I thought, what's next? And I started my own agency, Search Theory. So it's been so fulfilling so far, and I've been doing that for the past 3 months.
What a story, David. No grades, into apprenticeship, then moving cities, then working at an agency, climbing your way to the top, and now you're the managing director, founder of your own agency, Search Theory. Wow.
It's been, I mean, I could have gone on more, like, but there's so much to it. But it has been, you know, when I look at over the past like 14 years of my career, it's like wow, what a journey. And I've enjoyed it so much, if you know what I mean, like more so than the end result of where I am today and like what I have. So
that's fantastic. Well, I can see why you pick ambition, because you are definitely not short of ambition. So let's find out, what question would you like to go for?
Let's go with this one.
What's a milestone you hit that mattered more to you than you expected it to?
I would say moving to Manchester. And the reason I say that is because that was probably one of the biggest decisions that I made in my life and the biggest milestones that I hit, because I come from a small town in Ilkeston between Nottingham and Derby. And, you know, not to offend anyone there, but it's full of, you know, old people, retired people. You're born there. Some people are born there. I wasn't. I was born in Croydon. Some people are born there and they die there, and that's it. They stay in that town forever. It's very much like, I always call it the village from Hot Fuzz, because it's just, there's some crazy people there, but it's really close and everyone knows each other. And when I first talked about, I was working at Pentland Brands at the time, working with Speedo, Mitre, Kickers, these huge brands. It was such an amazing role. I got paid a load of money for it, and I was comfortable. And it was like, I could do this for the rest of my life. And that was bad. Like I came to the realization that I might become one of those people that live and dies in Ilkeston. And I just thought that wasn't a fulfilling life, and I thought there was more to it. And so I flirted with the idea of moving cities or moving to a city. I always loved New York, but that was too ambitious. So I landed on Manchester because I'd been there a couple of times. Stephen Bartlett was building Social Chain at the time. It was really popping off from like a technological standpoint. And so one day, like, because my contract was coming to an end at Pentland because it was only temporary, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to apply for a job. I'm just going to move. I'm just going to do it. Like I think at the time I had like 800 quid in my bank and I had a couple of credit cards. And so I went and rented an Airbnb for 2 weeks. And the idea was that I would apply for jobs while I'm in Manchester, because it's much easier that people take you seriously when you've got lives in Manchester on your CV. So I moved there on a whim, away from my girlfriend, away from my mum and dad. I've never lived outside of home before, and I was on my own. I was on my own for those 2 weeks, applying for jobs, and I interviewed at a place, and I got that job. And it was such a significant milestone, because a lot of people in Ilkeston, even though they meant no harm, like they didn't mean it negatively, but it was very much like, oh, you'll be back. Like, you're crazy. What are you doing? Like, you can't just go out with no money. Like, you need to have substantial savings, and you need to have a job offer, and you need to have this. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to do it. Like, you know, you've never done it before, so you don't really know. I'm not going to take that advice. I'm just going to go and do it. And I did it, and I made it work. And I've lived in Manchester ever since. And so for me, that will always be like one of the biggest milestones that I've ever reached in my life and career. And it's something that I'm so proud of, because I feel like it's unlocked a belief system in myself that I could go anywhere and make it work now. Like, I could move to America and make it work. I could move to Edinburgh and make it work. And I've inspired some of my friends the same. So my friend Joe, which I'll give a shout out to, he's a big dreamer, and he was stuck in typical 9 to 5 at Morrison's. He's always wanted to develop games, and an opportunity popped up for him to move to Edinburgh and work with a game developer. And as you know, there's Rockstar Games in Edinburgh who make GTA.
Yeah.
And so he got a job offer, and he said to me, he was like, what do I do? Like, this is from literally the Midlands to all the way in Edinburgh, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by Scottish people. That's like a terrifying thought alone. So I just said to him, I was like, look, trust your gut, go with it, try it out. Worst case scenario, you come home. That's it. And it was just like a click for him. It was like, and I was like, if it don't work out, you move back in with your parents. And we have the privilege of that, fortunately. Not everyone does. I appreciate that. But if you have the privilege of being able to move back with your parents if something doesn't work out, or having a friend that's going to let you sleep on a sofa, then you've got to think, even if the worst case scenario plays out, it's not so bad really, is it? So I would rather try and fail than not try and regret. So yeah.
Where did this drive, determination and mindset come from? Have you always been like this as a child, or like when did this all start?
I don't think I always had it. I think there was always something within me that wanted more than the ordinary. And I think over the years, being told that I'm not doing well and I can't do this and I can't do that and I shouldn't write with my left hand and I should write with my right hand and I should turn up at school and I'm not going to get a job and I'm not going to be able to afford a house and the rest of my life is going to be basically you're going to be a bum because you've got no grades. Yeah, I think the drive and ambition really built up in those younger years between the ages of 15 and 20. And when I got my first opportunity and I did really well at it, I still had people doubting me back then, you know, when I had my first job and telling me that my work wasn't good enough. It wasn't perfect, of course. And so I was really driven by other people's doubts of me. And I just wanted a better life for myself. And I think that's always been within me. Like I said, I've always wanted to have more than just the ordinary. But I think there are other elements to it from my upbringing as well, from when I was a child. Like we didn't have much. Like I think in the early days, we had a new build home. It was very nice, and we wouldn't get everything that we wanted for Christmas and birthdays. We'd get some things. Like I got my Xbox 360, but we didn't go on holidays. We didn't live a luxury lifestyle. My dad was very cash strapped all the time. That, you know, the most common word in my household was can't afford it, can't afford it. Mum and dad, can I have a fiver to go out with friends? Can't afford it. Be a whole drama in the house because I had a brother and sister as well. And then when the financial crisis came in 2008, my family went bankrupt. Essentially, we had to sell the house, forced sale, and we moved into rented accommodation in a terraced house. In one of the busiest and booziest parts of Ilkeston in town. And so for me, when we moved there, it was terrifying. Like we went from having like a normal kind of poorish lifestyle to being literally at the bottom of the barrel. The house was cold, moist, wet, damp places. Had like mold, like not moldy, but these like greeny, horrible looking carpets that you could literally throw up on and you wouldn't be able to tell someone threw up on it because it would blend in. And my life went to that much of a low. So I think having experienced all those things from like my upbringing and seeing that we were really poor, I just kind of wanted better for myself. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew I'd figure it out. And so I think that's where like the drive and ambition has come from. My brother and sister are like the opposite of me. Like my brother has children and so does my sister, and they're very relaxed, very family. They want an ordinary life. I respect them for that and I love them for that. They're amazing parents, and but they've never been bothered about like being successful. They'd love to have loads of money, but they've never been as ambitious as me. And I think it's because I experienced like a somewhat ordinary life to go into like poverty, and my brother and sister moved out at that point. So I think that's what drives me.
Moving into mistakes.
Yeah.
Let's find out what the cards have for you.
This could be anything.
It really could. What's a mistake you made twice before it finally struck?
Oof. It's a good question. There's loads of mistakes that I've definitely made over my career and in life. And I think I've always had the view that you learn from them and you don't necessarily regret them, but you don't repeat them. But I think if I was to say there was a mistake that I repeated twice, it was probably just trusting the wrong people. And I think this is probably common amongst a lot of people who've been through the type of journey that I have. But when you were young, you were vulnerable, and I'm only 30 years old. Some would argue I'm too young to be a founder and co-founder and CEO. But in those early days, my ambition sometimes led me down paths that I didn't quite anticipate, like trusting the wrong people or doing the wrong things. And I think at a very young age, if I'll say like 7 years ago, probably when I was 23 years old, I put my faiths and beliefs and trust into the wrong people, and I didn't see red flags for what they were. And so I won't go into the details because it's, you know, it's deeply personal, and I think, you know, things happen for a reason. But, you know, I trusted a certain individual very early on in my career who was like, you know, you can move up and I'll support you and champion you, whilst they were doing pretty bad things behind the scenes. And after that happened, you know, I've made up with this person, by the way. Like we've totally squared it off. I met with him a couple of months ago. He's admitted to everything and said, look, I was an absolute mess, but I was really being taken advantage of. You know, because of my youngness, I was willing to take a lower wage. I overlooked certain things that I shouldn't have overlooked. But then I made that mistake twice. It's a very difficult one because you can't be so closed off in life. You've got to have some elements of trust and take a leap of faith. But I think there are certain like patterns that you spot in some people where you go, this is happening again. But it did happen to me again. And, you know, again, I moved past that. But I think the positive side of that is that I've come out much stronger. And I feel like the relationships I build are much tighter now. Because in life, when you get anywhere near success or you're really good at what you do, it's not just going to be one person. You're going to have many people around you that will try and take advantage of you, try and exploit you, try and scam you, and find those gaps in your knowledge that you've not yet filled because of inexperience and young age. And so that's probably the biggest one, I would say. And I would always advise people to be careful of like, you know, who they trust and who they put their trust in. I think it's just a thing of life. When you get older, your friends group gets smaller and your family gets smaller naturally. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there's a lot of beautiful things in that, but that's just the reality.
What was the cost of that? What did that cost you, I guess, mentally?
I mean, it was over several years, and it wasn't one particular person. It was like a handful of people, really. And I feel like some of them were like ultra aware of what they were doing, and some were just, you know, blatantly doing it out of spite or whatever. But there was a point when COVID hit, and my mental health was at an all-time low because we're all locked in, and I was in a one-bed apartment at that stage. So I felt like a cat in a cage. And then to have certain betrayals from people that I once trusted was kind of like the cherry on top. But also at that time, I was dealing with, you know, bad economics and struggling economy and, you know, pandemic, and just thinking, how are we going to survive through this? So the cost really was my mental health. And for the first time, when I was younger, I was quite arrogant to it. I thought anxiety was made up. I thought it was a load of bollocks. And I thought things like panic attacks were exaggerated. But for the first time in my life, I actually started experiencing it. And I started experiencing panic attacks and anxiety, and I couldn't breathe. And, you know, I felt really anxious all the time. And every time something happened to me, I was like, oh my God, why is this happening? And I would kind of go down a spiral. So I feel like that's what it cost me. But it was a number of factors that caused that. But it was a good lesson in building resilience for me. And I feel like a lot of people that I've spoken to have been quite open, that they're actually going through similar things to me. And so you find like hope and solace in that, really.
Let's move into sacrifice next.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot about sacrifice.
Where do you go?
I'm going to pick here again.
What's a trade-off that you accepted that other people questioned at the time?
Money. And we're all obsessed with money. Everyone is. It's a way of life. And one thing that I sacrificed for probably the first 7 years of my career is money. And it was always questioned by people. First job I took, as I went through at the start, apprenticeship, the minimum wage for an apprentice back then was £2.61. So I was bringing home just under £400. Half of that went on my lunches and travel. I had to buy a bike for 800 quid. Well, it wasn't 800 quid. It was like, I think I got it on a salary sacrifice kit. I'm not sure, but I had to buy a bike and I had to buy a helmet and lights and stuff. And so I decided to go on my bike to work. But for that whole year, I was on £400 a month. Meanwhile, my friends were getting minimum wage jobs at pubs and Morrison's and stuff. So at that time, when they were making about £1,200 a month and being able to afford holidays and drinks and things, I had to sacrifice, like, short term, not earning a boatload of money, or, well, an average kind of earnings, I guess, because all my friends were going on holidays, Spain, and drinking and doing all this. I couldn't do any of that. And I would always get asked. I'd be at a bar and, oh, rounds on David. I'd be like, I can't afford it. Or I just wouldn't go. I just wouldn't go out. I'd be like, no, I can't go out. I can't afford it. Or if I did go out, I'd have a Coke, you know, and that's it. Or maybe one pint of Budweiser. But people always question me, why do it? Why do it? You know, like, why don't you just get like a normal job? Social media is not going to go anywhere. It is just a bit of fun for you, like, but you're earning rubbish. But I genuinely believe that's the way marketing was going, and it inevitably did. For my second and third years, that's where like minimum wage kicked in. But by that time, all my friends had got pay rises. And so but in my second role, I worked for an agency called iBot Security. It was like a web development company. And I think I was taking home £11,000 a year there. So it was a big bump from where I was at. I was really happy with it. However, I had to get the bus to work to Derby. And that bus was like £3.50 there, £3.50 back. I had to buy my lunches. Pretty much ended up with the same amount of money that I had when I was on my apprenticeship. And so early on in my career, like I said, for the first 6 years, I wasn't really earning anything of substance, and a lot of people questioned it at the time. I had my grandparents question it as well, you know, because they were like, well, where is it actually going to go? No one believed in like that I could make it work in marketing and social media until I did. And then from there, when I started to earn good money, it went from, why are you doing that? And people doubting me, to, you got lucky. And I just find, and I think this is so common amongst, you know, people who have become successful or entrepreneurs or who have made something of their life. But the conversations I have now is that people don't really see the pain and sacrifice over those initial 6 years that I did. And even the past 6 that I've been through. They see the result. But yeah, that's the most common challenge thing was money.
It's the classic iceberg, isn't it? You see the little bit at the top, but you don't see everything out deep below the water. But how did you at that time? Because, I mean, those kind of age, that's when boys start developing and peer pressure starts kicking in and things of that nature. How did you navigate the peer pressure at that time? Because going to the pubs with your friend, they're shelling out some money, you want to feel like the man, but you ain't really got it because you're sacrificing for the long term. How did you go through that period?
Oh, it was really hard. It took a lot of like sacrifice and just reality checks for yourself. But I ended up getting a girlfriend who I actually married. She's my wife now. We've stayed together ever since. And she supported me. Like, so she would buy me drinks. And so there were times where we went out where I couldn't afford it, and she knew that, but she would buy them. I'd be embarrassed about that because, you know, you want to be the man, you want to be the provider. And she hid it. You know, she hid it really well. She would just send the money to my bank, and then I would order the drinks. And so there were times like that. But broadly speaking, it was really tough, and it took a lot of like to hold myself back, of like not wanting to go on that big holiday in Spain because I couldn't afford it and I didn't want to put it on a credit card, or going out regularly with friends. But also there was a lot of my personal time that I spent working on creative projects for myself and for the business that I work for. And I think early on, a lot of people thought it was sad. And I was a bit delusional. And then I think it eventually turned into, oh, he's actually going somewhere with that now.
Looking at operations.
Yes, I actually had a job in operations at one point.
I was going to say, I know you quite methodical, so
I'm going to go this side this time.
Okay.
Ooh, there we go.
What's the operational thing you're most proud of implementing and why?
Oh, I love that. That's the kind of question that I wanted. So 4 years in at Candy Sky, I was account director. Aaron Cullen was the managing director, and I discussed with him quite closely on what the leadership team would be now that we've grown substantially. And we was working with Hayley, our head of SEO at the time, and that included defining our roles a bit more. I had outgrown mine massively. I was getting quite bored of it, to be honest, because not to sound cocky, but you know, when you do something for so long and you get so good at it, it becomes like, Katie Leeson put it perfectly, because I interviewed her in a podcast and she said, comfy slippers. So when you feel like you've got your comfy slippers on, that's when you need to change. And I was at that point and I was like, I want to go into something a bit different. And I was like, the biggest problem that we had at that time is that our costs were very high, which meant our profit was quite low. And it was a problem that no one really wanted to solve, because we were all busy doing things. I was busy doing sales, managing clients. Haley was busy delivering. Aaron was busy managing the business and doing accounts and doing all of that sort of stuff. One of the things I suggested to him, or he actually suggested to me, was that I should go into operations and I'd be a good ops guy, he said. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we really defined the role as like, my job is to make the business mature, to make it profit, and to look at cost saving measures without sacrificing quality or letting anyone go. And I said to Aaron specifically, I was like, I don't want to fight. He didn't want to either. You know, Aaron's not that type of guy. He always wanted to make sure people were happy and kept in place. And I said, I want to make sure that no one gets let go. We don't cut anything essential. And we don't cut quality, because clients are with us at the moment, because we deliver quality. So I became operations director. It is just a title, let's be real. But my role fundamentally did change with it, my responsibilities. I hired someone as an account manager, Giuseppe, and kind of passed the baton to him quite quickly. And the one thing that I did that made the biggest impact is, and I worked on this with other people, it wasn't me alone, I've never claimed to do anything on my own, is that we cut out a £9,000 a month bill that we had with a third party, because we was outsourcing like the PR link building side of the agency, and it was costing us over 100,000 a year. They were going to put prices up from April of the year that I got the promotion, so it was going to go even further. And I said to Aaron, I was like, this is going to spiral out of control. And I was like, we need end-to-end control on everything in the agency. I don't want to rely on freelancers or outsource or whatever. So we ditched the link building agency. So we immediately saved like 9,000 to 12,000 a month. It really depended on what month, but it was a varying cost. And we made the decision to hire a digital PR manager who would do that work for us, and they would come at half the cost of what we cut. We also reviewed all the tools that we had and cut all the fat that we didn't need. There was massive efficiencies that I implemented across the board with the team on managing their time and actually delivering work. I increased the hourly rate of the agency from £90 an hour to £150 an hour in increments over a 2-3 year period. That brought profitability from 8% to nearly 50%. And that was just because 100% of my effort was focused on operations. I'd never done an operations role before, but I understand maths and I understand common sense and logic. And I think a lot of businesses kind of think that like operations is this big scary thing that you have to hire someone for. But I think there are a lot of things you can look at yourself and go, actually, why have we got that? And how can we optimize that? How can we make time more efficient? How can we increase costs without upsetting clients? We never had a client leave because we increased the cost. We never had a staff member leave. We didn't have to cut anything. We didn't have to make people unhappy. We didn't have to cut jobs. And so I proved that agencies can be massively profitable. and happy and produce good results. And that I was really, really proud of. And I did that alongside an amazing team, by the way. Like, I didn't just pull a trigger and go, this is happening. I put the problem in front of everyone, and I was like, this is my idea of how we're going to solve it. And I gave them the opportunity to say, you know, oh, this is my idea, or to challenge it. And we worked together on the problem and really polished it into a really great solution.
What part of that have you taken into search theory then?
The biggest part is just staying lean and knowing your numbers and constantly questioning old processes and systems and being curious. I think that's the biggest thing, is being curious. And it's one of the things that we really champion at Search Theory is always stay curious and always have ideas. There are a lot of people in this world that have opinions, not ideas. And the world, in my opinion, is driven by great ideas. And so I ask my team constantly if there's something that they don't agree with, or that they see that they think we could be doing better, to come up with a better idea. And that's what we do. And I think from all of those learnings operationally, from managing finances to hourly rates and competitive pitches and processes and time, I really learned a lot about how to run those things really smoothly and profitably, so that we can pay the team really well, so they will stay. We can treat them really well because we've got more money in profit, and we can actually share those profits at the end of the year. So something that me and Sarah had committed to is, when we built Search Theory as an agency, it was the agency for the people. And people are at the heart of every single agency in this country. And anyone saying otherwise is a liar, because what you sell as an agency is let's be real, it's time, right? You know, oh, buy this retainer for SEO and paid, we're going to give you 15 hours or whatever. Most people sell it that way. And so time is tied back to the people that you hire, and those people need to do effective work. So effectively, your product is the people. You need to treat that product right. And so that's what I've always had a focus on. You know, it's funny, I always say, happy chickens, happy eggs. Simple as that. But doing great work and staying curious.
Okay. Service.
This should be a good one. I'm going to pick this side. There we go.
Slide that to me. What's a piece of work that surprised even you with how well it went?
I think maybe 2022, post-COVID, when we were all still working, like doing a hybrid between working remote and in the office. I was in my home office, but it's kind of like this room with a desk. And I was sat there, and I managed like most of the inquiries alongside Hayley. And we got an inquiry from Yamaha Music Group, and immediately thought that's fake, because we usually get inquiries from B2B companies. It was from a guy in the German division, and he was saying, we want to work with a content marketing agency. Our budget is 50,000 a month. Oh, bloody hell. I've never seen a retainer that big. Like, I've worked with big retainers, like 20, 25, 30K a month, but 50K a month and Yamaha. Like, this is huge. And we did not have the staff to deliver that work. But I thought initially that it must be fake. Arranged a call, spoke with Enrico on a video call. Very clearly, it's him. He's on LinkedIn. He's connected to Yamaha, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, right, this is a real inquiry. All of my colleagues at the time was like, no chance. Like, we can't deliver this. Like, even if we win it, how the hell are you going to pull it off? And I was like, we'll find a way. And I was like, we can figure that out later, but something is interesting them about us, and we need to pitch it. And so I didn't really have anyone's blessing at the time. And they were like, look, good luck, but like, you're going to have to figure out this mess. And I was like, look, if we win it, I promise I will figure it out by hook or by crook. We will deliver this work. And so I got invited to pitch. There was several other agencies, some of which scared the hell out of me because it was absolutely massive. And again, I thought, I stand no chance. And I sat there, the pitch was like a couple of days away. I sat every single night working on this pitch. I got the branding guidelines, which they kindly sent to me. So I incorporated that into my pitch deck, which isn't quite usual. Usually you do your own agency brand, but I felt like at the time I was like, if I want to stand out and I want to be different, I need them to feel like I'm one of them. So I incorporate all of the branding, all of the images into my pitch deck, this beautiful pitch deck of like, this is Candid Sky, this is how we're going to work with you, this is what we're going to do, and this is the costing. And there was probably about 40 pages in that pitch deck, and it went into detail of like all of my ideas of what we could create content wise. Some of them was absolutely crazy ideas, and then I put the 50,000 price tag on it, and I was like, I'm sure I can deliver all of that within that price tag, and I thought, go for it. Come to pitch day, and it was at like 9 a.m. this pitch, and I woke up at like 9:15 because my alarm didn't go off, and I thought, this is cursed, like literally I'm being screwed here. So I shot out of bed, got myself refreshed, went into my office. I was in my jammies still. I had like a black t-shirt on, so I looked fine, and I jumped on this call, and all of the commercial team were there. There was like the guy I was speaking to initially, Enrico, and then there was like people from the England team and Japanese team and German team. There was probably about 8 people on this Zoom call, and there was like me in the corner there like that, like eyes red because I'd just woken up. I was like, hi everyone, nice to meet you. And I was really confident, and I went in really confidently, and I was like, really nice to meet you, nice to see you all. Do you want me to just go through the pitch deck? And I was like, yeah. Went through it page by page. There was a load of questions at the end. No expressions. It was just like, okay, all right, we'll get back to you, we'll be in touch. And I thought immediately, I was like, this, whatever, like I tried and I did my best. I did really well on the pitch. And I got a call 3 days later, you won it. Like you've got the work. Had a caveat, they wanted to do an initial project with us. So instead of the whole 50,000, there was like, here's a budget to make one piece of content, because we want to make like 30 pieces of content a month, but we really want to give you this small budget and see what kind of work you can make. And if it was something silly, like it was a very ridiculously small budget, it was like £5,000. And it really was like a test. And he was like, if you do well, we'll give you the whole lot. Like, you've won it. You're the only one in line. We're not testing anyone else. I was like, great. And he was like, let the budget be your limitation. And he went, and let your creativity, this is what the like head of creative said. He was like, let your creativity shine. And I thought, I can't, because literally everything's expensive, like cameras, equipment. And so he was like, make whatever piece of content you want. I decided on a video because it was big and it was visual and it was exciting. Made 20 phone calls that day. And I pulled together a team of filmmakers, sound designers, musicians, makeup artists, everything, all from Manchester. And I pulled them together and I was like, look, I can't pay you much. I was like, we're all going to be scraping pennies here, but I've got this retainer. So if you win it, then we've got this bigger piece of pie, which most people would go, oh, I don't work for, tuppence to get the bigger pie. But I literally sat down with them. I was like, look, this is Yamaha. Can we do this? People agreed. We got together, we filmed at the Whiskey Jar, which is an amazing place in the Northern Quarter full of brilliant musicians who we sourced from. And we filmed this beautiful 2-3 minute little film about people from the Northern Quarter and the Whiskey Jar. And we filmed sessions of them jamming and playing music at the heart of it. And we delivered this film to Yamaha's commercial team, and I was like, wow, this is brilliant. And I was like, right, we're going to post it and advertise it on our socials. And we've got a landing page ready for it. Like, they were all ready. They were like, your video is just going to be an advert, and we're going to push it to an audience and test it. And it's going to go to a landing page where someone can fill out a form or buy a product. And it was a huge success. And then we ended up winning the further projects from that. And I worked with them for over 2-3 years. We did some amazing work over that time. I was completely out of my depth, but it worked out for the better.
Love that. There's a session in the podcast called the AMSOS Challenge.
Yeah.
The previous guest set a challenge for you without knowing who you are. But the question to you is, would you like to accept the challenge?
Yeah, I'll accept the challenge.
The challenge for you is the compliment.
Okay.
Pay one specific compliment to the agency owner you most respect.
That's difficult. I've worked with a lot of great agency owners over the years, to be fair, like 4 or 5. I've worked with some bad ones as well. I would have to give it to David Vernon, and I'll explain why. So when I moved to Manchester, David was the original owner of Candid Sky, and he played for Newcastle Football Club. Really, buzzy, great individual. I met him when I first moved, and he really did take a chance on me. Like, I sat down with him and the other commercial directors, and I did my interview, and he had always had this belief in me, always believed in like my abilities and where I could go. So I would say David was probably one of the most inspiring agency owners that I worked with early days. And I think with David's values, he always cared about people, and he looked after me, and he was always like, "Are you all right? What do you need?" And that was like almost like his sole job, I felt like. But it was the same for everyone else in the company. And I feel like he's probably instilled those people caring values in me, with me now being an agency owner. So I think David is, he was brilliant with me early on, and he was great.
To wrap up, the final question is a game of chance.
Okay.
I'd like you to roll the dice, and depending on what number that lands on, determines the final question.
Oh, nice. Cool. Let's do it. 1.
1, okay.
There can be only 1.
What's the worst and best advice you've ever received?
Wait it out, you're not ready. And the best advice that I've probably got is trust your intuition and your gut. I think 2 of those are like really contrasting answers.
Love that. David, you are an amazing storyteller. You are someone who defies all rules, all laws, the way things are supposed to go. You find a way to create your own path out of nothing, and that's extremely inspiring. So I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast. We will link all your information in the description, because I'm sure there's going to be a few people that want to connect with you.
Sure.
And yeah, this has been a phenomenal time getting to find out a bit more about you and learning about your story and your journey. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed having a conversation with you, David.
No, it's been a pleasure to come on, and you don't get many podcasts these days that do in person. So I love the idea of it, and this has been absolutely amazing. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you.